First on the agenda, we have public comment period, and I would just ask that, I think is the microphone green? Eric, do you mind looking at the? It is green, great. If anyone goes to the podium and just states their name and address for the record. Tom?
Tom Meekus, 73 Marmion Way. As a follow-up to your meeting of December 10th of last year, at which the chair of the Finance Committee was terminated, and around which all but one remaining Finance Committee member has resigned, I have three specific questions that can be answered yes or no or with a number. I think this is appropriate tonight because you're interviewing potential new members. So the first question is, the chair of the board at that meeting stated, quote, "I want people who are going to support having a strong school system here, no matter what the cost." My first question is, do all the board members subscribe to that statement? No matter what the cost?
Is this a Q? I don't know if this is a Q&A.
I'll ask all three questions and you can wrap on it if you want.
Sure.
Please.
So first is, do any of you disavow that statement? Because you didn't at that meeting. The second statement is the reference to strong school system. Does that mean a 5-star rating in School Digger like Manchester Essex has?
School Digger?
Schooldigger.com, which is the basis for Zillow. When you're trying to bring people into town, they look at Zillow and the school ratings at schooldigger.com. So Manchester Essex has a 5-star rating. Rockport is a 3-star rating. So when you say strong school system, do you intend to bring it up to the 5-star rating? That's the second question. Third question is, how much do you expect Rockport's tax rate would increase to achieve that high rating?
I'll jump on
Sure.
one. All right, to the last one. We have no idea how much it'll cost because you don't know what the components are that are needed to make it, to get to a 5. So it would bode more research as far as I'm concerned. As far as your first question, one more time, Tom, can you tell me? I'll jump on it.
You subscribe to that statement no matter what the cost.
I want an independent thinking finance committee whose ideals are in line with what the board says. It doesn't mean that they have to do what the board says. It just means that we all, it's been said, and I think Sarah said it, that this is one pot of money. This is all of our money. And we want it spent to protect our kids, to educate them, and to do things in the best interest of those that we represent. So we're not looking for people to be lockstep in what we're doing and what our plans are, but it helps when you have somebody who's a willing partner to go along with things. Along the way, there'll be divergence of opinion, and that's welcome, and I think that's a great thing, because it lends itself to an open discussion on both sides. I don't expect anybody to do anything that's in lockstep with anybody, but I do expect them to do what's in the best interest of the town, and when those circumstances are presented in such an obvious fashion, that they can act on that.
I'll take that as a no. You didn't disavow no matter what the cost.
You can take that as a no, that's fine, but there are caveats to it.
I will add that I think you're trying to make very specific something that is maybe not that specific. And forgive me, I just put a lozenge in my mouth, so I apologize. I don't think that you can have a thriving community without a strong school system. I think a strong public school system is the basis for a democracy. And I think we have an obligation as leaders of this town to ensure that we are providing adequate funding to provide for a strong school. I don't expect the members of the Finance Committee to agree on every issue, but I do hope that they will, and I'm looking for members who will be rowing in the same direction and agree with our commitment as leaders and fiduciary responsibility as leaders to provide for that strong school system. So no matter what the cost, I don't think anybody is saying that. I'm saying we want to be reasonable. Excuse me, Tom? I saw you throw your hands up. So
When you said you don't think anybody is saying that, the chair did say that at the last meeting. I have it on
I
tape,
take it
and
back
it's an
then.
exact quote.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it is, knowing you, Tom. So I am not saying that. And I don't think anybody has done the exercise to figure out, do we want it to be a 5-star school system? I think we have a very good school system now, and I think we need to continue to support that school system appropriately so that we can continue to maintain one that supports the community. It's an integral part of our community. And I, for one, wouldn't want to live here without it.
Thanks.
Well said.
Well said. Thank you.
Ruth, did you want to add?
I agree. I don't think I want just people who are going to say yes and no matter what have a wonderful school system. I don't think that's what we want. But I do want people to be able to think of ways we can get things done, not have a cut and dry yes or a no, but think outside the box of way we can get things done. And a little from this pot, a little from that pot, or however we can best do it with the monies that we have.
Anyone else? Sure. Toby, and then we'll move back to you.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I wrote your
Toby,
board a
back up just a tiny bit. There we go.
I wrote your board a letter on the 19th of December with my questions for town council about the Long Beach settlement, the cases with the tenants.
I didn't see it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
It was stamped in on the 19th.
It probably kind
It
of
was
got,
it was in the mail, but also it came in the day before I went out, so
Right.
we haven't been able to draft something for you to
we
consider
probably
yet.
it hasn't gotten to us yet.
It's been in the
This is
mail slot,
holidays.
but not.
I was promised the answers to the questions at your meeting at which you last had town council here, and as yet I've received no reply. I hope for a reply sooner rather than later. I don't expect that you would allow me to ask questions directly of the candidates for the Finance Committee, so I'll give you my questions and ask you to ask them the questions.
Great.
The first question is, did any member of the Board of Selectmen or any other town official tell you that you were expected to support any particular town committee or any particular town project? And the same as a question. Did any member of the Board of Selectmen or any town official ask you if you would support any particular town committee or any particular town project? And third, what was your reply? Also, the Finance Committee has a written policy on emergency transfers. And please ask each of the candidates, do you feel bound by that policy? Have you read it?
I don't, okay, well, we may or may not ask some of those, but, okay. Wally? I think Wally was next.
Wally Hess, 117 Granite Street. What you said earlier sort of indicated to me that you think the Finance Committee did not fully support the school system, the old Finance Committee. I'm just wondering if I interpreted what you said correctly.
Who said? Who said that?
That message certainly came across that you wanted to have the new Finance Committee more fully support the schools than the old one. You didn't say those words, but they came through.
Nobody said that.
Okay.
Nobody said
So then you do agree that the old Finance Committee did fully support the school system?
We're not going backwards, Wally.
yeah.
We're not going backwards.
That's done.
It- That's all business. We had 2 hearings on this. I made a public statement. Everybody here has spoken on it, and we're done. And if Mr. Sepula has something else to say, he can add it at the microphone. But, we've said everything that needs to be said, Wally. I know that you had reached out to me, and I gave you my answers. I told you what I had said. I mean, I don't know what else needs to be said on this. Nobody thinks that you folks hated the school committee. Let me finish. That you hated the school committee or hated their agenda or were against it. The problem is that we had a vote that was taken, and nothing that happened post that was predicated upon that. Let's be very clear about that. That was just the last incident that said something needs to be done. So I hope that answers it, and I'll answer no more questions on this at all.
And may I?
Sure, go ahead.
Don, Wally, I would just say you resigned. You had the opportunity to have a hearing. I think you decided not to do that. And so as far as I'm concerned, that chapter is closed. And we're looking forward and we're working together.
I agree. I just want to make sure that tonight's discussion is not something like saying, do you support the school system more than the old Finance Committee?
Nobody said that.
Why don't you wait for the questions, and then you can make that determination. We haven't even asked the question of one of the candidates yet.
Okay, I just want to make
No,
sure that.
no one said that.
Okay.
Nope. Eric?
I have a question that has absolutely nothing to do with school system, but it has to do. I attended the DPW meeting. Can you remember this week or last week? Last week.
Last week.
And something came up that I just need some clarification on a funding issue. As you know, I attend almost all town meetings for decades now, and it caught me off guard that I know we got a grant from the state, which is great to get a grant. They're not always all great, but apparently a sizable chunk of local match went into the grant. And at that meeting, no one could actually explain how that money was allocated. I didn't understand it. And I would have always thought that funding of that nature would have needed
What grant? Just
the $1 million
Long
grant,
Beach.
the Long Beach grant from the state. And it was described at that meeting that there's somewhere between 75 and 250,000 of our money
I thought it was
that is going for the match. It's going to be done this winter before a town meeting on the
Let
match.
Mitch answer that.
let's let.
So I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure how, why some others couldn't articulate that at that particular meeting. $70,000 was the amount of the transfer. I spent probably about 10 minutes at the last meeting walking through every particular detail. There was a memo from the Director of Public Works that I shared with the board on that particular matter.
Oh, at our last meeting.
Yes, this board's last meeting.
Yeah.
That the $70,000 was being utilized from internal funds in Public Works because there's a significant safety issue and a concern that if work is not done in the next 2 months on that wall, there's a concern that there could be a significant failure.
Right, and we've discussed we've discussed
More
it
than
in the-
once, I
right,
think,
more than
yeah.
once.
Correct.
Yeah. But it was 70. It wasn't any more than.
There was,
it was under
it was-
100,000.
The transfer was
I
for
remember that.
$70,000.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well,
And that's-
it wasn't clear, and it caught me off guard a little bit, how we battle over $50 at town meeting, and Long Beach is such a large policy issue, which I've been in front of this board many times on, to spend $1 million plus, our match brings that $1 million,
Right.
does,
Right, but the town was just contributing 70, which.
Right.
right, but it materializes the $1 million, so, but we had no public discussion on it. When people apply for a grant, the public isn't, we don't say we want to apply for a grant, so that's kind of my point. That-
Well, no, it was discussed. It was discussed way back at.
The grant has, in various forms, been,
Yeah. It's
been
including the
discussed
Long
quite a
Beach
few
Impro-
times, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's-
Infrastructure Committee.
It didn't go to
That's
town
been
meeting, but it was
various,
discussed here.
various,
Yeah.
various
And Long
formats.
Beach infrastructure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the hope was that if it wasn't, needed this winter for kind of
would've
emergency
waited.
repairs, that it would have waited and been used, if we felt otherwise later. Yeah.
So it sounds like it was an emergency transfer to,
Right.
is what this was? We
Yes.
didn't know at the DPW meeting, so that's why I was
Yep.
like.
So the request came from the Director of Public Works and was signed by the chairman.
Yeah.
So it's strange that they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of talked about it like that, but it was questioned at the meeting, so it
Yeah.
was very,
And I think it may have been that
dubious.
they've been talking about it ongoing for a while, so maybe that's why it didn't get the full discussion at last week's meeting.
But you see my point, I'm trying to understand. If
Yeah,
it's not an
yeah.
emergency, how does 70,000 materialize without a town meeting? That's
So
my
the,
question.
so the director has indicated that it is an emergency nature. So he has utilized funds from his operating budget to make that happen because, as he's indicated, there is a significant safety concern.
Yeah.
And it's specifically for revetment stone,
Revetment, right.
additional revetment stone to be placed in front of the wall
Yeah.
to avoid a failure.
Okay. Thank you. Hold on, I want to let other people who haven't spoken. Mr. Sepula, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Z Seppel on 92 Granite Street. I agree with Toby's question or suggestion, rather, to have the new proposed members of the Finance Committee offer their thoughts on the policy of the former Finance Committee regarding the reserve funds, which has been in place since November 17th, 2014. The question that I have that really bothered me was a justification that the Finance Committee had the authority to approve transfer of that reserve fund based on a statement in that policy which says, to wit, emergency requests, for example, repair work which should be accomplished before the next town meeting in order to minimize a public safety problem, also qualify under the second definition. I don't think I need to get into my career as a quality assurance person with the government, but we did have specific contractual definitions of what repair work was, what rework was, and what scrap was, and what UAI was, use as is. And a repair in that context of where I work was bringing something that wasn't conforming to a contractual requirement into a usable condition. So it was meaning that the government was not getting what it paid for, but it was getting an acceptable substitute. And the problem I have, and when I look at this statement that the Finance Committee drafted up or used for 4 years, was it seems obvious to me that what they were talking about was some situation, some component, some kind of a machine or mechanism that had an intended use and wasn't able to be, wasn't functioning, and that therefore could be qualified for a repair with money that wasn't necessarily seen to be needed for it, but needed to be generated somehow. So what bothers me is what this whole thing was to replace all of these old cameras that were supposedly black and white and scratchy images and stuff like that with new state-of-the-art color pictures and so on and such. I just don't see that as a repair. And I guess I can't really get into what I think as far as the cameras themselves, how much they actually contribute to safety, public safety. I don't think I want to get into that. But I don't think that it can be safely assumed that cameras are going to prevent any possible.
On that note, we are going to
Yes,
agree
thank
to
you.
disagree and move on. Toby, one more comment, and then we will move on with our agenda. Busy evening.
What you had to say, Madam Chairman, what Mitch Vieira had to say regarding the Long Beach transfer from the DPW, that was money taken out of the transfer station budget to plug into Long Beach. But there's more to it than that, and what was said here is far from being the whole truth. Joe Parisi, at 2 different public meetings, stated that he asked for a placeholder article at the fall town meeting for the matching funds for the $1 million grant, and there was no such article. So had it been done properly, it would have gone before a town meeting, as Mr. Hutchins was so eager that it should, as indeed it should have in the normal course of things, and there was no reason why it shouldn't. And that wasn't the first case in which the town meeting was circumvented. Last summer, there was also a transfer for a Long Beach study in the sum of $78,000, this being the town's matching quarter of another grant for just over $300,000, and that was taken to the Finance Committee where they approved, at the request of the DPW commissioners, an emergency transfer for something that was not an unanticipated expense, something that could and should have been brought before a town meeting. So there's now a pattern of abuse of these transfers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yet again, I would agree to disagree. Ruth is our liaison to the DPW. She goes to just about every meeting. So, Eric, Toby, I'm sorry. Please stop. Stop interrupting. Toby, I'm sorry, Eric, I would suggest that maybe if you have further questions, get in touch with Ruth, and she can make sure that the DPW commissioners answer them at the next meeting. Because I know that they're open to answering all of this, obviously.
I was just confused.
Yeah, but she can help you get it straightened out.
A reasonable question presented in a very reasonable way. Thank you.
Thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Anyone else for open session? No? Okey doke. Okay, we're not going to interrupt tonight. If anyone continues to interrupt, you'll be asked to leave. Okay, next we have interviews. So I know I say this, but it's always nice to interview fresh faces and fresh, it's always nice to see old faces and new faces alike. But tonight we have several people who we're interviewing for the Finance Committee. First, we have an old but fresh face. How does that sound, Lorraine?
Experience, not old.
I didn't mean old. I didn't mean old like old, looking old.
Dig yourself out of that one, Sarah. Yeah.
Lorraine knows what I mean.
Familiar.
First, we have
Familiar.
Exactly. Strike that from the record.
It's been a long day. First, we have Lorraine Russell. Lorraine, do you mind joining us at the table? And I'll have Mitch just give a little primer on kind of the process that we've used so far. I know, typically there's a process where members who are applying for a committee go to several meetings of a committee, but since the Finance Committee hasn't been meeting, we've had to resort to a little unorthodox process. Do you want to just touch on what?
Certainly, Madam Chair. For the 3 new individuals, we had an introductory meeting to talk a little bit about the background. 2 different meetings in my office, along with June Michaels, and for one of the meetings, Carrie Arnaud, our finance director, joined us, and we talked about the role of the Finance Committee. We talked about the budget cycle and timing and the capital process. And we provided an opportunity to answer any questions for the 3 new members and to give them a chance to talk about basically in eyes wide open. Here's what the committee entails. Here's the time commitments, et cetera.
I will say, just not to interrupt, but I think we'll probably continue to do those because as we continue to get more people who are interested, those are kind of a good introduction. For example, we had a few people come to those and then decide that the workload or timing wasn't
Yes, it
correct.
just wasn't right for someone. Yep.
So they're going to hold off for now. And so I think as more people come forward, we'll continue to do those.
Certainly.
And then, and you also kind of take a deeper dive into technical experience and resumes.
It's the opportunity to talk about some of the technical things. This evening is, again, certainly can touch on those, but more philosophical and directional questions.
Great.
So we did that, and I think they all went well. Good questions were asked. We had just talk about some general background information, and then here we are this evening.
Great. Okay. Lorraine, welcome.
Thank you.
So if you wouldn't mind just giving a few-minute talk about obviously we know your background, but just for those who don't, and I always say the millions who watch on television.
Right.
For those who aren't with us, if you could just give a few minutes about your background and what brings you here, and then we can open it up to kind of questions and more of a discussion.
Okay. My name is Lorraine Wessel, 45 Main Street, Rockport, Mass. I've been a resident of Rockport for the past 30 years. I've had 4 children go through the school system. I have a very strong financial background. I've been in banking for over 30 years. I served on the Finance Committee from 2009 to 2016 and also served as the chair. And I've always had an interest in town finance. I also serve on many other committees in town. I presently serve on the Economic Development Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Ed Foundation for the town of Rockport for the school system, and many other committees.
Great. Open it up for questions. Start with the vice chair.
Oh, thank you. Lorraine, thank you. Thank you for stepping up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's appreciated.
You're welcome.
I'm going to come right out of the gate with, how do you view the relationship between the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, and can you explain the dynamic associated with the two?
Yes. Having served on the Finance Committee and other committees, I feel that the Selectmen and the Finance Committee, although they think independently and they're charged to think independently, that they should be working as a team. They have one goal, and it should be the residents of the town of Rockport, what they want. We're working for the residents of the town of Rockport, and I feel like that we can do that together.
Okay. And having served on it before, where do you see the areas of improvement and not just for the Board of Selectmen, pardon me, not just for the Board of Selectmen, but for any board in town, because we're not the only board that you deal with in town.
Right. I think that we should continue with having liaisons. I think the communication should be opened up, possibly having joint meetings more often, and discussing common goals.
Perfect. Thank you. I have more, but we have other candidates here, and I'll wait. Please.
Good questions.
No, no. I just thank you for stepping up. I mean, you've got the experience, you've done it before, you did a great job. I'm very glad you are stepping up.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I would say is what I had planned to say before we were discussing this earlier during the public comment period. I, for one, am not looking for any member of the Finance Committee to be a rubber stamp. I agree with Don. I think we want an independent thinking Finance Committee, but I am looking for a Finance Committee that is going to be open to what you said, which is partnering with the Board of Selectmen and the department heads in order to support the overall town and the residents of the town. So I'm glad that you emphasized that partnership in your commentary.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm good. Yeah. Yep.
You good?
I had a couple questions, Lorraine. What would you say the biggest challenge you found was when you were on the Finance Committee before? Like whether it be working with the Board of Selectmen, not necessarily like internally, like just kind of in town in general, being on the Finance Committee because you were on it for so long.
Yeah, I think that I'd go back to what I said prior, is that I think there does need to be more open lines of communication. We all get so busy and have time constraints. We all have them. So I think we need to make a point to have some joint meetings, even if it's once every 6 months, just to discuss how everybody is addressing certain issues, because basically we're all addressing, in some ways, the same issues. We all specialize in different areas, but there's one common goal, as I said, is to serve the residents of Rockport.
Yeah.
I have one more, if that's
Sure,
okay.
go ahead, please.
And for the others that are waiting in the audience, you're going to hear these again because I had a few and they'll overlap a bit. But how would you handle a situation where a member of the Board of Selectmen, or any other board for that matter in town, asked you to do something that you felt was contradictory to a position that you held?
I would bring it back to the Finance Committee. It wouldn't be my decision. It's the Finance Committee's decision to make a decision on what we manage in terms of the reserve fund. There's only certain criteria that we manage. We don't manage the whole town the way you do. So if you were asking me something very specific in terms of what we manage, I would bring it back to the Finance Committee, because it definitely would not just be my decision.
Perfect. Thank you, Lorraine. I'm good. Thank you.
Great. I did tell Toby. Can you just repeat your first question again that you wanted me to ask people? I didn't write it. I meant to write it down.
Yes. Did any member of the Board of Selectmen or other town official tell you that you were expected to support any particular town committee or department or project?
And then what was your reply? Was the follow-up to that?
Yes, and the same phrased as a
Great.
question.
Thank you.
Absolutely not. Nobody's ever asked me to do. Absolutely not is my answer.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
thank
And we
you.
might come back with more. What I'd like to do is kind of interview each person individually, and then if we end up with a little bigger discussion at the end or other questions come out of it, kind of re-ask them.
Do we
Is
need
that
to
okay?
take each on its own motion?
We do actually have to take a motion.
I'll do the first.
Great.
I move to nominate Lorraine Wessel as a member of the Finance Committee for the term to expire on May 1st, 2019.
Second?
A motion has been made and seconded, and this is just the nomination,
Right.
obviously. Is there any, actually, you are okay to vote on this one for right now? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just on the nomination.
This is just on the
Right,
nomination.
nomination, yep.
Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, so you've officially been nominated.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Next up, Carl Engel.
Would you like a nomination? or-
Sure. Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I move to nominate Carl Engel as a member of the Finance Committee for a term to expire on the 1st of May, 2019.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Carl Engel, 35 Pleasant Street. Toby, no, no, and yes, to answer your questions. No, no, and yes.
There we go.
You're a quick study.
I like that.
I mean, they were in my head. I figured I would just stand up and answer.
No further questions, Your Honor. We're good.
And I'm from Rockport. Most people here know me. I have served on the Finance Committee in the past. I was recruited by Wally. I worked with him a lot on the Finance Committee. I'm sorry, when I was in the School Committee. And for my year and a half, I enjoyed it. I kept the minutes a lot because I thought it was a lot of information. It's like trying to get a drink of water out of a fire hydrant. And so
Don't scare people, Carl.
keeping minutes helped me keep up, so that's what I did. And I think I worked well with the members. I worked with June when I was in the school committee, and Bill and Wally. And again, my 6 years on the school committee and 2 as chair, I worked well with the finance committee. We worked together a lot, and Wally will agree with me. So that's something that I thought I always brought to both committees. Was
How long were you on the school committee for?
6 years.
6 years. And then a year and a half on the finance committee.
Just a year and a half. And I got off because at the time, meetings were held at, for whatever reason, they were held at 9:30 in the morning for a long, long time. And I just couldn't commit myself. And I didn't think it was fair. So I did speak to Wally about that. He was the chair at the time. And if I wasn't going to go, it was getting into town meeting season. So I resigned. But I enjoyed it. I love the town of Rockport. I liked one thing that I did. We each had to pick a certain town department, and I got harbor masters and the ambulance, and I worked a lot with Rosemary, learning about her budget. There's a lot that goes into it, and so there you go.
Yeah.
Here I am.
There we go.
Shoot.
Question?
Yeah, sure. I only have one question in 27 parts. I'm kidding.
Rodney Dangerfield, I got you.
Right, there you go. Back to school. You got that, see? I'm going to throw you a beach ball here. Describe to me the role of the Finance Committee.
Well, to start, you oversee the budget of each department, and then you present and advise town meeting on said budgets. That would be 2. And 3, you've got the $300,000 reserve fund that you manage. So, in a nutshell, that's the 3 top things right there, I would say. For myself, I don't bring an agenda, and I'm sure plenty of people here think that I'm the school committee guy, that I'm going to fight for that. That's not true. I don't bring an agenda to any. I think any committee you go into in town, you can't micromanage, and you got to leave your agenda at the door, and that's what I do.
Great.
Which, with that being a good basis, what do you consider your particular strengths and that you bring to the Finance Committee? I'm sorry.
Well, I know town budgets well. I think working on the school committee, that's the biggest budget in town, and I managed that. Even when I wasn't chair, my job on the committee was to work on the budget, and doing that, you're with the Finance Committee all the time. So, yeah, and I'm not saying I would want to run the school committee. I'm not saying that at all, but I understand how town budgets work.
Well, I think your familiarity with the budgeting process is a real plus.
Right.
And the fact that you're committed to independent thinking is a real plus from my perspective.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Thank you, Carl, for stepping up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for stepping
My
up.
pleasure.
Other
Happy to
questions
help.
for Carl?
No.
Carl, you have the interesting kind of perspective as someone who was on the school committee, was on the finance committee, which, like for conversation's sake, you could have been a DPW commissioner. Do you have any insight, and it could be something that you get back to us on, as to how, because it's interesting when when it's the selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee, like how we could better work together, and it doesn't have to be just school committee, it could be DPW or harbor.
It was a
Besides
year-long
just
thing.
communication?
We worked, with school committee and finance committee. I think there was, as far as the budget went and contract negotiations, there was open communication year-round. And that's something that, I don't know how it was before I got there. I know before I got in the school committee, whatever reason, it was, it was contentious, but we had ways of making it fun. So we got together and did things, and we talked a lot, and everything was open, nothing was hidden,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
And No, I think that's important. There was always open communication. Even on the school committee, we try to do that with the Board of Selectmen as well. I used to come to the meetings all the time.
Yeah.
And I was always, this goes back to when Mike Rassico was there, and it was always, the phone was always open.
Yeah. Yeah, you were always at our meetings back then, I remember. That was a long time ago. We're getting old.
Getting there.
All right, do you have any questions for us?
Nope.
At this point, no?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Carl.
Thank you.
Thanks,
very
Carl.
much.
Absolutely.
All set?
Okay,
We are. We read the motion.
Is there any
Yep.
further discussion on Carl's nomination?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries, great. Next, Heath Richie. Hey, Heath, welcome.
Want me to make the motion?
Sure.
I move to nominate Heath Richie as a member of the Finance Committee for a
Second.
term to expire on May 1st, 2020.
Second.
Oh,
Motion has been made and seconded. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi.
Nice to see you again. If you wouldn't mind giving a little bit about your background, kind of personal work.
Sure.
Great.
My name's Heath Richie. I live at 1 Woodbury Hill. I grew up in the town, and I am currently the CFO of a small software company in Boston. Previously worked as a software engineer and for a long time as an equities analyst. So I have a pretty good background in finance, I think, and technology. I think I could. There's an outside chance I could contribute in this role.
I think it's an inside chance.
Yeah.
big inside chance. Yeah.
Here's hoping.
That's like when, who is it? Is it Bill Waller? It's like, no, who's the actual rocket scientist who comes in?
Bill Waller.
Bill Waller, when
Yeah.
he's like, I am actually a rocket,
Rocket
scientist,
scientist.
so I could, and we're like, ooh.
I can't claim that.
Could you just touch a little bit about why, how you became interested in the finance committee, or what sparked your interest?
Somebody's got to do it. This is not a particular goal of mine.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do this, and I think it's
Great.
important that someone do it.
Great.
So I'm here tonight to see if I can make that happen.
Okay.
Great.
Question?
Fantastic.
ahead,
Would you answer Toby's questions, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, no one has asked me to support any particular position.
Great.
Was that
Thank
it?
you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Yes, that does it. Good.
Well, thank you. Thank you for stepping up.
Yeah,
I want
absolutely.
to say, sorry, Don.
I agree.
No, please finish.
No, that was it. I just-
It's nice to see that kind of a background and having, the technology side and the financial side. But out of that, what are your particular strengths based upon that? And again, some of these questions that I'll ask will be repetitious, but I think they're important to know, the diversity that we can have on the board of thought and opinion. And I think that might be a good one for you to answer.
What are my particular strengths?
Strengths, yes. What are you going to bring to this board, to the finance committee, in particular, out of your?
I can only bring. I am who I am. I can only bring my background and perspective. I grew up in town. I live here. My family lives here. I want the town to be a good place, and I think that the role of the finance committee to advise the voters at town meeting about what's a good budget for the long-term interest of livability of the town is an important role, and so that's what I can bring.
Great.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Paul or Ruth, any other
No,
questions?
wonderful. Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you very much. Heath. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we seem too grateful?
No.
Any further discussion on Heath's nomination?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Great.
Excuse me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Paul. Is it Derosier?
Derosier?
Derosier, okay. I was trying to be too.
Too French?
Welcome.
It's really Derosier.
Welcome, nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
Motion?
Sure, we'll make a motion.
Sure. Madam Chair, I move to nominate Paul Derosier. Did I get that? As a member of the Finance Committee for a term to expire on May 1st, 2021.
Second.
Great. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. I think at this point you pretty much know the drill.
I guess so.
Go ahead.
So my name is Paul DeRosier. My wife Ashley and I live on 27 Atlantic. We've only been in town for 4 years, so I don't know the town that well, and probably I know the town far less well than almost probably everyone in the room. That being said, we fell in love with the town. We love the community. And
Where were you before here?
we're in Brookline.
Okay.
And,
That's a big change.
well, frankly, we share it. We split our time.
Okay.
We're about 50% of the time here. And
Okay.
as time goes on, it's just getting more and more.
That seems to happen.
Right. And frankly, what happened is that I heard about what was going on with the finance committee, and I just thought that the town was probably going into town meetings coming up in the spring. This is probably the worst time to not have a finance committee because the committee was really understaffed. And I thought I had some background and some skills that could be helpful, so I just figured I'd raise my hand.
Great. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your professional experience?
Sure.
Great.
I've worked in actuarial consulting my whole career. I worked for Mercer Consulting. In fact, Denise and I worked for the same firm, but we weren't there at the same time. I was there for 10 years, and we left. Two of my partners and I left and started our own firm about 14 years ago.
Okay.
So we do actuarial and employee benefits consulting. We help large plan sponsors with their employee benefit plans. I also do a lot of union work where we do some management consulting. And I do asset liability modeling, finance work for large union plans.
Okay.
So I know a lot about group insurance.
And about retiring medical, I would expect.
We know a lot about retiring medical.
So that's going to come in handy. Yep.
We do GASB valuations
Great.
for a lot of the towns in the state, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, we work with another firm that does it.
Uh-huh.
We do the peer review.
Okay.
They sign the form, but we
Okay.
do the peer review.
Good.
Great.
It's going to be helpful.
Okay. And do you still have your firm with your?
Yes.
You do. Okay, great. Questions?
Yeah, I'll jump
Great.
in. I'll go back to the first one, which was, how do you view the relationship between the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, and especially in light of what you said originally, which was how you were paying attention to what was going on with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. So how do you view that relationship, and what can be done to make things run smoothly going forward?
I don't have a firm position on the answer to your question. I know what I've read in the Gloucester, in the local newspaper. I've read all the meeting minutes from the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen for the last 12 months. I've picked up things from people I know in town. I still don't feel like I have all of the answers. Mitch and I talked about it briefly the other day when I met with him. My understanding is that the Finance Committee is the eyes and ears of the taxpayer. They're not supposed to rubber stamp the Board of Selectmen. They're supposed to be there as an advisory to the town meeting, which is really the town of Rockport, not necessarily to the Board of Selectmen.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make sense to me that if you're all elected officials and you're nominating people to be on the board of, the Finance Committee, that they've got to kind of, chances are they should somewhat agree with a lot of your opinions, I would think. But it doesn't mean that they rubber stamp your opinions. It means that they can't be opposed to you all the time. But that's what I've gathered based on the things I picked up.
If I may,
Sure.
what I would say is that I'm not looking for people who agree with my opinions most of the time. I'm looking for people who have the same sense of where they want the town to go, and the same kind of shape of the vision of what kind of town we want, as opposed to somebody who's going to agree with my opinions, just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean.
That was well
right.
stated.
That was.
That was very well stated.
I think that was perfect.
I think that really pinpoints the sentiment of what we're looking for.
Yeah,
Good
I
job,
mean,
Denise.
when Mr. Mikas in open session quoted me as, something about me believing in a strong school system, like, yes. I mean, I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 11 years, and I've never, that's something I'm proud of. I have 2 children in the school system, and I want them to grow up here as well, and I know that without a strong school system, that's not going to be possible. So that's something I'm proud of, and like in any city, I think I've said this before, mayor or city councils, like, you appoint people who won't agree with you all the time, but in general, you would hope that big picture things align. Otherwise, what's the point?
I far more enjoy talking to people who disagree with me than I do agree with me, because you don't really learn anything when somebody agrees with you. I want to know who disagrees and where my arguments can be made stronger and how I can reinforce them. So I think that's a great thing. God, I have another
We
one, but I'll
actually
wait.
this year, in large part due to Don's efforts, have done a renewed effort working with all of our boards and committees and having even the small boards and committees come in kind of quarterly and meet with us. And we've had the opportunity to kind of hash out, disagreements and learn. And I actually, for one, have learned a great deal about some of the things that, I read all the committee minutes that I get, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I never would have voted for that. But then we have that committee in, and they kind of, explain what happened, what the situation was, and I see a different perspective. And I'm grateful not only for them doing that work on the committee, but I also learn, like why they voted different than I did. And I'm perfectly happy with that. But big picture, you're right. I mean, big picture, I, would like to work with people who view the future of the town similarly to the way I do.
Everybody's in this room because they love the town of Rockport.
Exactly.
So you would think that they would think similarly on most issues.
Yes, yes. So anyway, were you, not to interrupt anyone else, were you on any boards or committees in Brookline?
No.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
No, this is my first soiree in municipal government. I know very little about it.
Well, things here are so quiet, nothing can happen.
Never any drama.
Never a problem.
Right?
No.
Well, that's great if you're stepping up when you just.
I just thought I could
moved
help
here.
it.
No, it's great. And
wonderful.
honestly, I mean, this town could not, and I say this time and time again, and including with all of the finance committee members who, have recently left, this town could not operate without the hundreds of volunteers that we have. We simply could not do it. And we are so lucky to have just a variety of opinions and talents. I always joke that if we were to make like one giant resume of everyone on the committees, people would just be blown away because, we have this small insurance committee that works on kind of insurance projects. The resume of that committee is like, whoa, it's like incredible. So I hope you'll find it enjoyable. It is hard work, and I know we gave you went to Mitch's primer.
I did.
And met with June as well.
I did.
So you got a glimpse, because we do want to be honest with people about the workload, and
I have a sense the next couple of months could be pretty
could be busy.
busy.
Yeah. But then it's like vacation. No.
Yeah.
So thank you for stepping forward.
I need an excuse to keep making the drive back and forth during the
exactly.
middle.
There you go.
Great. More time.
Give you some Rockport.
Any other questions?
you.
No, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Any further discussion on, do you have any questions for us at this point?
I don't.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
did you answer Toby's question?
Oh, Toby's
Oh,
question.
Toby, no, I did not have any contact with anybody concerning any of the issues that have come before either the Finance Committee or the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
So-
Any further discussion on the nomination?
Nope.
No, we're
Okay,
good.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. And next we have Thomas Barrett. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Good, how are you?
Good evening.
Thanks so much for joining us. Did you say neighbor?
No, I said good evening.
Oh. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Should I just turn the microphone over to you? Because I think you know the drill.
Do you want me to make the
Absolutely.
motion?
Want Ruth to
Oh,
I'll make the
let's
motion.
just make the motion. Thank you.
I move to nominate Tom Barrett as a member of the Finance Committee for a term to expire on May 1st, 2021.
Second.
Great. Motion has been made and seconded. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, let me tell you, in 2 days, I celebrate my 1-month anniversary as a citizen of Rockport.
Congratulations.
Nice.
So
That's
pretty excited.
jumping in quickly.
It is.
And you didn't have to climb the wall.
So we are going to be year-round residents. I work from home, which means because I work from home, I like to go out to eat 3 times a day. So I've already frequented most of the coffee shops and Wi-Fi areas and restaurants in the area. Real quick, my background, I'm an engineer. I run an internet company. We sell domain names just like GoDaddy, so you may be familiar with that. I'm a niche provider focusing on regulated industries like .bank, .pharmacy, .realtor. And I run a virtual company, a team of 12, dispersed, frankly, all over the world on 3 continents. So from a corporate finance side, I've ran multinational companies. I've sold companies, one in particular listed on the London Stock Exchange. So I understand corporate finance. On the government finance side, my industry is semi-regulated. Real quickly, the history of the internet is actually spun out of the U.S. government. It was a Department of Defense project. And under the Clinton administration, they decided to put it into private hands. And so 20 years ago, they started a group called ICANN, which is really a internet governance organization. And so I was part of the founding of ICANN. I was part of what's called the white paper and green paper that was generated by IRA magazine of the Clinton White House. And so I've been involved with helping to run ICANN for the last 20 years. Like a town government, it's strongly staffed by volunteers to make it run, and it could not run without volunteers. I've been active in many different ways. I know I've sent a resume along. There are working groups, there's policy development groups. Currently, I'm the co-chair of an organizational review for what's called the nominating committee, which I served 2 terms on as well. The nominating committee basically elects half of the ICANN board. I'm also on the standing committee for the ICANN budget and operations and strategic plan, representing something called the GNSO, which is the generic name supporting organization. And those are folks like myself that are contracted with ICANN, but also intellectual property interests and nonprofit interests and civil society, things like that. And so internet governance is town government on steroids, if you can imagine that. We convene 3 or 4 times a year. The next meeting's in Kobe, Japan in March, for example. There are several hundred governments there. There are it's attended probably by 3,000 volunteers that attend these meetings. The ICANN organization itself has 400. They probably send half of that to these meetings. And we basically develop policy for the internet, be it privacy rights or intellectual property rights or commercial rights. Who gets to run, for example, .Amazon? Should it be the company or should it be countries in South America or nobody? And so that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 20 years, still very active in that. But I'm, as I say, I live here full-time, I work here full-time, and I want to get involved in Rockport, get to know people in Rockport, learn how it works, and that's why I'm applying.
Great. Thank you so much. Question?
Yep, I'll jump right in.
Great.
And this may be something that comes with a bit more experience, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I just like to see where things are. How do you view FinCom's role in getting involved with between budgetary advice and operational decision making? How do you see all that happening? And when it's a matter of money as opposed to boots on the ground, if it's police or DPW, like how do you see that dynamic working?
So I've read the bylaws for the town and for the finance committee. I've obviously read all the minutes as well, so I understand what's gone on the last few months. And I actually made a call yesterday to the Massachusetts Municipal Association because I had some questions about finance committees in general in the state. So, for example, I remember reading in the minutes, we should be electing the finance committee rather than appointing it, and learned 80% of FinComs in the state are appointed, 20% are elected. And according to them, the trend is more towards appointment. So election seems to be a vestige of the past, right? They're appointing FinComs. I also asked them about something that's very important in terms of internet governance, which is how do you ensure transparency and accountability? Because with this type of grassroots consensus building that we had to do with internet, as well as I think you have to do in the town, the question is, from a finance committee perspective, who are we accountable to? Mm-hmm. And how do we ensure we're transparent about the processes we follow, right? And so I do think that there isn't really a clearly defined mission or charter for the FinCom, and I asked that question of the MMA yesterday as well. Every town seems to do it differently. There are certainly bylaws that talk about the different processes and steps you're involved in. My sense is, however, we are an oversight committee. We're the eyes and ears of the voters of the town. And we are representing to them that, hey, we've taken a look at these budgets. We didn't come up with them, right? They're developed by the various departments. But here's our take on what we think you, the voters, should do with this budget.
Do you, can I keep, if you don't mind?
Sure, no, go
Thank
right
you.
ahead.
Do you bring any preconceived biases or agendas with you to what you're about to undertake potentially?
No. So I'm a process guy, right? If you've read my resume, my career started off doing factory automation for jet engines at GE and Pratt & Whitney. And then I went to Anderson or Accenture to do business process reengineering. So I went from automating parts to automating data. And the internet basically is the biggest platform for reengineering a process. So it's very disruptive to a lot of businesses. So I think of process in terms of how this should operate. And so to the extent, for example, there's a disagreement about what to do with the reserve fund, I've read the guidelines from 2014. Clearly, they weren't clear enough because there's a difference of opinion about when those funds should be utilized. So to my mind, that's not a communications issue, it's a process issue, right? And obviously, that's how I would try to approach whatever we do, is what's our process? If there isn't one, there probably, it doesn't sound like there isn't in some places. Let's come up with a process. So it's clear, we're transparent, and it's clear who we're accountable to.
I have let me follow up with a non-process question that's more personal that I've asked earlier, but I'll ask you, how would you handle a situation where a member of the Board of Selectmen or any other board or committee asked you to do something that you felt was in contradiction to a position that you personally held?
So we actually have to deal with this actually within this ICANN community as well. I served on the nominating committee for the board. And so you start getting lobbied by various people because they want their candidate to sit on the board. First of all, and I don't know this about Rockport or not, in some instances, you may want to have a whistleblower capability to let you know, hey, so-and-so who runs this department, I think is being inappropriate in their approach to me. So I don't know if that exists. I assume it does. But if not, perhaps we should define that as a way for us to speak up when something like that happens. Obviously, you'd want to handle that. I think you want to handle that quietly and discreetly if it can be, rather than have to go out publicly and perhaps embarrass people. So I think that's how I would answer that.
Would you have a problem speaking out publicly if circumstances warranted?
Absolutely. I'm not a shy guy.
So you would you would do it.
Right. And I will tell you this, you may see my 1 month residency as a liability. It's actually an asset. I know Mitch. I met Mitch last week, right? I don't actually, and I met my next door neighbor. So that's the extent of my relationship in town. So I don't have any agendas or any alliances. No one has spoken to me about this position.
I was going to say perfect segue to Toby's question.
Right.
Yeah.
So I literally learned about this a month ago, minus 2 days, at the closing of our home on Cedar Ave, when my lawyer mentioned, hey, there are some openings you might be interested in.
Oh my goodness. Only in Rockport.
Wait till you hear
after
a year.
Closing.
You're right? No, neither. Right?
Only in Rockport.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's hysterical.
Oh, thank you.
I'm good. That's all I
Let
have.
me ask
So
you
I'm
folks
sorry.
a
Thank
question.
you.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So in your view, who is the Finance Committee accountable to?
The residents of Rockport.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all accountable to the residents of Rockport. I mean, we're elected, and then we appoint the finance committee. So in my view, we're all
exactly
accountable to the voters.
I forget who said it, the eyes and ears of the taxpayer. I think that's
Yeah.
exactly
Perfect.
right.
Yeah.
That is
Yep.
perfect.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to say that I'm happy to hear you make your comment. I had just written this down earlier, that the language of the policy, I think, does need some attention, and that was a suggestion I was going to make to the Finance Committee, that you revisit that language, because there was clearly some, enough vagueness in the language that it caused some problems. Yeah. So I think this is a great opportunity to revisit that language and make sure that it's crystal clear.
Yeah, I mean, we actually, is it the Historic Commission? that has, we have believe it's the Historic Commission that has one member assigned to kind of doing a review of all policies and kind of bringing them to the board kind of like monthly or in a timely manner, which I think is probably a good practice to have someone who's kind of on top of it, because as Lorene pointed to earlier, everyone's busy. It seems like it's always budget time. It literally seems like it's always budget time. And I think kind of maybe having one person who is kind of the watchdog for policies and so
One of the things
maybe
that we
good-
do within the ICANN world for internet governance is there are very clearly defined stakeholders that are interested in internet governance. And when we develop policy, we try to make sure they're representatives of each of the stakeholder groups participating in that policy development. Right? So that's the question, there are obviously clearly defined stakeholders in town. And we should figure out how to bring them all together as part of that exercise.
Yeah, and maybe you can work on getting more people to attend finance committee meetings.
Where'd you
At the
move
same
from?
time.
So I moved from Reading, Massachusetts. I spent 40 of my 58 years in Reading, including, so I grew up there. I'm one of 10, so we all went through the school system. I went away for about 15 years and moved back for the last 20 years.
Okay. Yeah. Well, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Tom?
No.
Thank you for stepping forward.
Yeah,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We'll vote on this. Any further discussion on this nomination?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Right.
Motion carries. Okay, and I will just ask everyone who we've just interviewed, at this point, any other questions or comments? Our policy, obviously, is that we nominate one meeting and then appoint at the next. And the point of that, no pun intended, is to give, if anyone attends the meeting and then wants to give us feedback, and to give us some time to kind of think on the nominations. And then, obviously, if any of you have any questions, to be in touch with us as well. But any questions at this point? No? All good?
And I didn't say it during, but thank you all for stepping
Yes,
up.
thank you.
And
Thank you all.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I mean, it's wonderful. We have two people who've been on the Finance Committee coming back on, one person who's grown up here, coming on his first committee, it seems like, and two new people, one 4 years, one month,
Yeah.
coming on board, working together
It's a great
with
mix.
the two
Yeah.
members that are remaining on the Finance Committee. So thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And everyone answered Toby's question. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
all.
Nice to see everybody.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
You're welcome to stay, but you don't have
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Everyone's like, out of here.
Right?
Do they have, so they can't go to a meeting till next, after we appoint them, right?
Yes.
So we don't have anything scheduled?
They don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to appoint them and then they
Yeah.
will have set.
So we appoint next,
The plan is the 22nd, the board would appoint.
okay.
So that, next Tuesday, so that we check that box right away.
Yep, good.
Nice.
Then I'm away.
That gets us to a quorum and we're good.
You're away next week?
Good to go.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Approval of minutes of January 8th, 2019, and I will recuse myself from these.
As will I.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. Oh, do we have a fee for it? No?
Do we have the minutes?
No.
Are they in the?
I don't think
No,
we have.
we don't
Yeah,
have it
I
on our
think
thing.
it's, you know what, I think she might have.
No, we don't.
We don't have
I
them.
don't think we
Because
got
remember
them.
she emailed us that she updated.
No, those are not, yeah, that's
but,
right.
Okay, we'll skip that.
Next
I
time?
think we just, the
Yep.
action list.
Okay.
Yep, action list. Appointment of Nancy Kearns as a member of the Traffic and Parking.
Yes, I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Nancy Kearns as a member of the Traffic and Parking Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2019.
Seconded?
Motion has been made and seconded. And Nancy has done the admin for.
It's like 7 years.
Great.
Makes perfect. Yeah.
She has the most seniority besides Joe on the committee, so we're happy to have her voting now.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No need to talk about if you attended meetings. She's all
She's
set.
good.
Yeah, she's got
good.
it.
We're good.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Nancy. Okay.
Does that mean that Eileen's going to step up next to jump on a
You're
committee?
going to be,
Right?
Arlene was like, what just happened?
Madam Chair, the
Yes.
next item, it's two different parts. One of them, I'm hoping the board will take action on this evening. Another part is to get the discussion going and to
Yep.
get a rough draft
Yep.
of a definition. So the first piece, just find the correct. The first piece relating to the legislation are several edits that Senator Tarr's office, his counsel, has sent back based on conversations with the ABCC.
Okay.
So the board has in front of them this evening Senate number 2669, the legislation that was passed.
269. Okay.
And the board has the authority to make amendments to this based on the vote from town meeting. There are several that were brought forward, and after conversations with the Senator's counsel, I felt they were reasonable enough to bring to the board. The first one being on line number 6, for the 2 year-round licenses, we had for the sale of beer and wine. The ABCC said beer falls under malt beverages and asked us if we'd make that.
Before.
That's a
Yeah.
simple ministerial change, so that you'll see that's a strike through.
Okay.
They also, the ABCC was interested in getting a better understanding on the town's definition of gourmet and specialty shops. So they really offered, Senator Tarr's office offered two options: one, that it could be codified in the legislation, or the other, that it could be codified in the alcohol regulations. My recommendation to you this evening is that it be codified in the alcohol regulations, so that the board has the ability to make amendments as appropriate as that progresses through. So the addition you'll see on lines 6 and 7, adding the words "as defined by the Town of Rockport alcohol regulations as amended."
Mitch, real quick on 6, I just want a clarification on malt beverage, because I looked it up and I can't find anything different, but malt beverages is only beer? Is that what it,
There's-
is there anything else that falls under the malt beverage
There are
category?
several items in
Yeah.
malt. So, for example, like so the ABC's example, ABCC's example of a malt beverage, it's all encompassing. Like Mike's Hard Lemonade is their example of also a malt beverage. It's not a beer, but it's a malted beverage. It's a malt beverage. So,
But it's not hard.
It's not hard alcohol.
It's not hard alcohol.
Right, but like if you
So-
went in, like remember, I'm thinking back a long time ago, remember the place in Ipswich where you could buy beer on Sundays? What was it? Like
I know a
back-
few in East Boston, but we
No,
won't talk
remember
about that.
remember the market, like, you could go and get beer. Brunies. Paul remembers. But right, you could get like beer and those like things, but you couldn't walk in and buy vodka, obviously.
Right.
Just beer and wine.
Right. So strange. I know. It's all weird now looking back,
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Pharmacy.
So those are the first two, and the third one addresses the language that we had here from council about the inability to transfer to a new location. So it appears, based on this, that a little bit of the thinking has changed on that particular matter. So the ABCC is actually the one that raised the flag that, why do we want that? That was always part of their standard language, and as you know, that's in the
That the
food store.
board isn't able to change the location, but they're saying.
Correct,
we can
they're saying
remain
that's
where
no
we are.
longer needed.
Right.
So I did discuss that with town council.
What's no longer needed? State approval? The board can now do it, is that?
The board can treat it like any other license that you can issue.
They probably got sick
So
of
we
dealing
could change
with address changes.
And that's really what it came down to. Once it was linked to that address, it couldn't move without special legislation.
Right.
It is their comment that unless the board feels strongly about doing that, it should come out.
Yeah, that's fine, it's fine.
My recommendation to you would be that should come out. It doesn't change anything on the rigor or the process assigned to reissuing a license. It simply means that if you want to move something from 10 Main Street to 20 Main Street, you don't need special legislation to do that.
Right.
We would still
Totally
have to
makes
approve
sense.
You would
it.
still have to, it would have to go through every
Whether-
normal process.
So
Right.
and hopefully, if
Makes sense.
Rockport Market becomes as wildly successful as we hope it does, and they decide they need a bigger space and move down the other end of the mall, we could do that.
That one,
Not-
so, no, because
No.
It's
the special
private.
act says it cannot.
It can't be, okay.
So it's about the
there's no
language in
grandfather
this,
clause.
no, this is specifically to this,
These are
for
different
these two
two.
licenses.
For these
Right.
two.
All right,
So for these, it would
Too
eliminate
bad
that
this was in a
provision.
month ago.
yeah, exactly.
So we,
Yeah.
I'm recommending on
But
line 15.
That
I'm sorry.
actually probably goes to prove, though, that they wouldn't have trouble. You know what I mean? They're
Right.
not, I doubt they would have trouble
It would be a
with it.
formality, it would take a while, but they could get
Right,
it done.
right.
Yes, so my recommendation is that we strike the language that restricts that from this. So on line 15, where it says may not approve, striking the word not, striking all of line 16, which reads, but may approve a transfer of a license issued pursuant to this act to a new applicant at the same location. That bleeds over into 17. So the new language would read, the board may approve the transfer of a license to a new location if the applicant files a letter, et cetera, et cetera. So that language remains unchanged.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the easy part, so to speak, on this particular matter.
So
And
does anyone have any issues with any of those?
No.
I don't.
Totally
It all-
makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes
it's all
sense.
common sense.
Okay,
Would you like the motion?
great. So let's vote on that.
Okay. I move that the board approve the following edits to S2669. Line 6, strike the word beer and insert the words malt beverages. Line 6, after food store, insert the words, quote, as defined by the town of Rockport alcohol regulations as amended, close quote. Line 15, strike the word not. Line 16, strike entire line. And line 17, strike the word location.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Further discussion on those? That
Works
seems-
well.
All seems reasonable?
Progress.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. So you can get back to them right away with that.
yes, we will transmit that tomorrow.
Okay, and then the second, which we can just start to discuss tonight.
Yes,
but
exactly,
it
just
can
to
be
get
a-
some thoughts.
Yeah,
going.
and honestly,
Right.
now that we've made those first changes, it may be that we all want to take what Mitch gave us and work on individually and then put it on our next agenda.
Yes.
Is our definition of a gourmet specialty store.
So-
One thing I asked is do we have any examples to go off of?
So no, there are not other stores that are defined in this particular way, which was part of the ABCC's question.
Okay.
That there aren't others that are listed like this.
Okay.
So I went back and forth a couple of times on trying something, and I took away my efforts and put down some, what I would consider some essential questions for the board to consider as a
Yeah.
starting point for those discussions. So, those questions really, what is gourmet and what is specialty? Are there specific food types that you want to include or exclude? Specific goods that you want to include or exclude? Beverages, include and exclude? Do you want to specifically state in this definition, which, this one I would encourage you to do, that it will not be a convenience store or a grocery store, so that there's
Yeah.
it's clearly defined that it doesn't fall under one of those two areas.
Could you actually email us the definition of a grocery store?
Yes,
we
that
use?
actually, that's
Oh, is
the
it?
second
Oh, cool.
item behind this.
Oh,
I
thanks.
printed off
Okay,
that
perfect.
legislation.
Great.
And the last point, do you want to use that as a starting point?
Okay.
So I would offer that there is some helpful information in the
Yeah.
layout of that particular act, which could
Okay.
be easily used as a base to translate into the alcohol regulations.
Okay.
And then just,
That's this one.
the Webster's definition of gourmet and specialty are also listed there, just as a
Yep.
few things to get some thoughts
Okay.
going. So, again, I put that in front of the board as a starting point this evening.
Yeah.
To,
I mean, honestly, are there two members who would love to take a stab at this, like, offline?
I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
Do you,
I'll
two-
work on
like,
it.
does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I'm good
Let
with
them
that.
make a draft and then we can discuss it?
My thought on this is, at this discussion tonight, this is about, and it's hard, because you try to take all factors into consideration, and inevitably you miss something.
Right.
Right.
And when it
Yeah.
comes about, so I think the discussion tonight perhaps should be centered around what we see as a collective vision on how it is, not the language.
Correct.
But where do we see this going, and the purpose of this, and how this can help the business community move forward?
Yep.
And the people in town, how to improve, I mean, I know when you're talking about alcohol, you talk about quality of life issues, and it's not always detrimental. It's in a good way. You want to go out and have a cocktail with your dinner.
Right.
And I think we've disproved all of the theories that came out originally of people rolling in the streets being drunk and beer trucks running over people and everything else. So people can act like adults and have a cocktail at the same time too. So, so that would be my 2 cents.
So maybe if we give a few thoughts and then they take a stab at a draft,
Perfect.
does that make
Sure.
sense?
Perfect.
Just in terms
Perfect.
of.
Thank you for doing that.
Yep, I think it's great.
Great.
We'll do it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that from town meeting, we have a good sense of the businesses that are interested. You know, like the list of businesses that, Mitch has a list of the businesses that would apply, kind of, because we've said it was kind of a first come, first serve.
Right.
And we
No pun
know,
intended.
and we know that it really is local, it's like truly local businesses trying to serve the local
needs,
residents
yeah.
and
And
visitors
visitors.
Yeah.
alike.
Yep,
But in
absolutely.
a, I don't want to say classy, but in a, in keeping the spirit of Rockport and the businesses that Rockport.
Keeping it hot, top shelf.
Yeah, keeping the spirit of like town and local business. Right? Does that make,
It
I'm
does.
just kind of spewing right now. but-
So what would the components of that be? It would be, I mean, if you get right down into it, you talk about, a gourmet shop. So, that word evokes really fun things in my mind as far as, cheeses and wines and
High
smells.
quality,
and
yeah,
exactly.
High quality items.
I mean, we're not talking about Land O'Lakes cheese sitting on a shelf, and, a bottle of Dr. Pepper or something. This is, I mean, how do we see this?
Yeah, and I mean, I think Mitch was on the right track when he said not a convenience
Right.
store,
Right.
not a grocery store.
Right.
Specialty items, higher quality items in a few categories, as opposed to, multiple inexpensive, I think you two.
Consumable on premises, is that something, I mean, I'm
No,
just.
it can't
No,
be
can't
be
consumed.
consumed. Okay,
on
good.
premises.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's written right in the legislation.
Good.
I would offer, Madam Chair, that perhaps it may also be helpful to think about, when you think gourmet and specialty, what shops exist now in other municipalities, and that may help to jog some thoughts on what could be included or excluded.
Yeah.
I think the other piece of this that I want to make sure we take into account, and you were touching on this, Sarah, was the local businesses. So Seaview Farm, for example, I know is interested. So that's food that's produced here in Rockport, and their goal is to support beer and wine producers who are more local in keeping with their kind of mission.
That was the whole model of,
Yeah,
when I presented,
exactly.
they wanted everything local.
Local. So I think, maybe building that somehow into an example of what would be, acceptable.
Yeah.
But what I don't want is to run the definition so narrow
Yeah,
that it only
we
kind of.
right, exactly.
Right,
No,
because I
agreed.
think the other business at the top of the list isn't, all
Isn't
the goods
local.
aren't local, but,
Right.
obviously,
But they're local people.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I think you two probably have a great idea to get started. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. What about, I'm always a fan, and I say this all the time, of public involvement and people reaching out. What about the local businesses and having maybe some sort of a forum? Is that not something we would consider, or?
Well, I think maybe we would do a draft and then invite public comment after we have a
Public
draft
hearing.
of it.
type thing,
yeah.
yeah.
And there would be, I would suggest that there would need to be a public hearing, because you'd have to amend the alcohol regulations anyway.
Yeah.
Right, for the regulation, but I'm saying, to before that point, to get there, so you have a little bit of guidance going forward.
Yeah.
Based upon the people who are actually in the trenches doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm happy to reach out
Yeah,
to
yeah,
I think, having spent my career as a writer, writing by committee is usually pretty dangerous.
Right?
I mean, I actually think
Nobody's
it's helpful.
happy.
We got so much public input at town meeting.
Yeah.
And it was
No, but I
approved.
think it's a good idea to reach
Reach out a
out.
little and, yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. And then,
A camel is a horse designed by committee. Is that
Exactly,
right?
right.
so you probably, so we have a meeting next week, but that's too soon.
No,
No, we can
No?
get it by then.
yeah, I can work on it,
Yeah.
send it to you, or
Maybe if I
whatever.
worked on a draft, and then next week we could then maybe try to schedule a public hearing.
That
if
would be-
there's a
that'd be-
draft that we agree on. Does
That'd be
that make
great. So
sense?
would you
Just to
prefer
keep
it as a
going?
discussion item or an action item for next week?
I think discussion.
Yeah. discussion.
Next,
Discussion.
first meeting, I'll
Because
just
you're
do
just
Zoom
gonna
for
see
action.
it.
Well, no, and then, but then from the discussion, we could schedule a public hearing.
Right, no,
We could
right.
do that, right?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You guys okay with that? Great.
And we'll also convey to the senator's office as well that the town is underway with its process, and they'll share that with the ABCC.
Perfect. Great. Awesome.
Speaking of which, while you're on the senators, and have we reached out to them again? I don't want to.
We're making the rounds and on some of those lists, and it's going to come down to, for those two individuals, whenever their two schedules align, we're just going to plug them in.
Great, because I actually had another school-related issue that somebody brought up to me to add to our list for that, so I
Great.
wanted to ask about that as well.
Perfect.
Great, so moving. Exciting.
I like
And
that.
then do you think they'll move ahead? I mean, they don't need our specific definition, right? to-
So the discussion with Senator's office was that they shouldn't, because at the end of the day, it's really up to the municipality.
Right.
So we're going to convey that it's in our regulations, it'll go through the process. If there is an issue, we'll hopefully know pretty quickly.
I was gonna say, maybe we can try to know if they're gonna hold us up on that by next week, just because if they are, maybe we can put the
Yes.
speed.
When we send this,
Yeah.
that'll be the first question. You know,
Okay,
can they
'cause we do have to
expedite?
have this has to go on a ballot.
Yes, they are keenly aware. That was,
Right.
Senator Tarzoff's actually
Yeah.
brought that up, that we realize that the town is on a tight deadline and
Okay.
that we don't want to miss our opportunity for May.
Anybody want to?
Cough
No,
drop,
thank you.
anyone? Anyone?
Anyone? Okay, great. All right, thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, on to discussion items.
If we could postpone the first one to next week, Madam Chair.
Perfect.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Great, sure. Plan timeline on the Dogtown nomination. Okay, so I put this one on here. I know I actually read, Eric, I was looking on Facebook, and I know you put some really helpful comments. Just saying that, several boards and committees in Rockport have, this has been discussed and this is being discussed ongoing, obviously. We have received several letters of unanimous support from several Rockport committees, and I know, Tom, you have given us one as well. I have been contacted a few times by Val Gilman, who's head of, is it Planning and Development?
I believe
Gloucester
so.
City Council, and they are hard at work on this. It looks like they are going to have, I just printed their minutes. It looks like their timeline is, sorry, I should have worn my glasses. Their type is so small.
Very
and
tiny. Wow.
It's tiny.
You need these?
No, I can't. I'm all right. I think I'll be all right. It looks like they have continued until February 20th, it looks like they're discussing. And
No.
then, is it? That's a Dogtown. I think that's the, hold on, I had it right up on my,
So the Dogtown Advisory Committee is 6 PM tomorrow.
right.
Tomorrow.
Planning and development.
5:30 PM.
Yeah, of the Dogtown Advisory Committee, right? No?
Thursdays, the
this month.
planning
Oh,
and
it is?
development.
Hold on. Okay. I mean, I guess it doesn't, I mean, it's all of their meetings are posted online, obviously, that anyone is welcome to go to. So I think, I would just like to put it on one of our agendas and invite anyone to come in and make public comment, right? Should it be an official public hearing?
Yes,
probably?
please, because it
Right, and we can
seems,
time
seems to
it,
be.
we can time it around, when Gloucester does theirs. And then we can invite, if any of the committees or boards who sent us letters in support want to come in as well, they could. I don't think we need a long, I think we have their report, right? We have a copy of their report.
Correct.
That anyone is welcome to come to our office and read. We have the letters of unanimous support from several committees.
Mm-hmm.
But we should have our own public hearing, so then we can vote and send a letter, either in support or not in support.
Right, and you
to
hear the opposition.
To the city council.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep, totally.
Great. So we should schedule that. I know you have a list of things to schedule.
So for that one, if you want to address that one out of the gate, so the February meetings are the 5th and the 26th.
Okay. Am I here for the 5th?
We moved it off a week to accommodate school vacation week.
Right,
so
because
there's
school
the extra
vacation's
gap.
next week. Okay.
Right.
So,
Just make sure I'm good.
yeah, I mean, we would just have to get notice out to, well, the majority of you are here. You and Tom are here. Yeah. So would the 5th be okay for you guys if we did a brief public hearing that night on it? Okay. Great, and then that gives us time to, we can vote. I think we could do a public hearing and vote that night on it, Mitch,
Yes, you
don't
can.
you?
Yep,
Public,
certainly can.
Public hearing, vote, and then we could send a letter, either in support or not in support, to Gloucester City Council. Great. And I will, I'll let Val know as well, so she can put it on her she seems to get harassed more on Facebook than I do about this, so,
Give it time.
yeah. Did you have a question?
Just for clarification, there is a meeting on this Thursday at which the Gloucester Planning Board has asked the Historical Commission to provide information on the effects
Okay.
of a nomination.
Okay.
And the Planning Board will report to the Planning and Development Committee of the City Council,
Right.
which Val chairs.
Okay.
And the Planning and Development that will then report to the City Council. It's quite a
Yeah.
step
The hip bone's
process.
connected to the.
Yeah, and
They
they've,
finally worked out a very methodical process, but it takes time.
they have, and this has been a learning, I
Oh, that's
actually,
good.
I know I've reported on this in the past, but I had a very good call with Val Gilman, who, this has been a good learning process for them, because in some respects, the cart was put before the horse, and they've learned now and come up with a process going forward. And I kind of very simply said to her, Val, we'll just have a public hearing, we'll accept public comment, our committees have already commented, and then we'll vote. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, things here can happen pretty simple. So she was very grateful to hear that. So let's put that for February 5th.
Perfect.
Great. Okay. Perfect. Okey doke. Okay. And then, moving on, so we can move right into additional meetings. Okay. So I'm going to, everybody have their calendar on them?
Pull it up.
So we have this week, okay, then next week is the 22nd?
Correct. There is
Okay.
a meeting on the 22nd. The item before we jump into the general list, the budget meeting, I know we had preliminarily discussed last week that we'd look at the 29th as a potential for that. Madam Chair, I believe you indicated that there may be a scheduling conflict with
Yeah,
that.
I'm
and-
actually gonna be out of town, all week that week.
So I would ask if the board is available for the budget meeting on Thursday, the 24th, instead of the 29th.
Thursday, the 24th, doesn't work.
Okay.
No. it
Well,
doesn't
and
work.
also,
I'm
we don't
working.
have the CIPC,
Yeah, so
Down
it can't get any earlier than that.
right.
Yeah.
Is that the first available he's talking about, or is?
It can't be any earlier because Carrie and I are still working our way through it.
No, no, but we can go after that.
It has to be presented to the Finance Committee by February 1st.
Okay.
So we may need to keep it, sounds like it may need to stay that
Okay.
week.
Do it without me there.
Can we do it on a different night as its own item, or is that not?
Are you here the 28th, or are you gone all that week?
I'm gone all week.
Okay.
What about the 23rd?
It's
Too soon?
It's too soon. We're still trying to finalize the.
I could do,
Wow.
I mean, I don't know, I was gonna say, I know, nobody wants to meet on Friday afternoon. Friday
What, the
evening.
25th?
Yeah.
25th? I could do that.
Whatever we need to do, I just can't do the other night.
Yeah. Oop, sorry.
Paul, could you do the 25th?
I could. Yep.
What time?
I mean, I could do whatever, I mean, I'll just get coverage for my kids out, I mean, however
Bring 'em.
early people wanna do it. They love meetings.
They love budget
actually
meetings.
do, Bizarrely.
I'm working, but someone just
Supposed to be,
called me,
but I'll go
texted
the
me and
next
wanted to
day.
switch a day,
No,
so.
that's-
Perfect. That's the day they wanted.
20 minutes from my kids.
Have to take off.
You're like,
so-
no
yeah,
meeting.
Yeah. I love that place.
It won't work, I'll come here instead.
Okay,
Where the
the 25th, I mean, I don't know what,
Does that work
I
for
just
you
hate
guys?
making people do a Friday evening.
I know.
I
But
know,
if,
but if we have to. we
if
have
people
to.
don't mind, I mean, we could, how early can you guys do?
I mean, I'm working, but if I have to leave early, I will.
What time can you get here?
Well, whatever has to happen.
What time do you need me here? 3?
I don't know, 4?
4?
Get here
You
at
tell
4?
me,
Do
I'm-
4 to,
Whatever.
4 to 6?
Four
Does
to
that
6?
work?
4 to midnight?
I mean, I want to do it early, as early as
yeah.
possible, so people.
That's fine.
And I think
We'll
this
break
time we may progress a little bit quicker through the process. I referenced last week that I'm
Soft right?
yeah, well, everything is will be in SoftWrite, but I'm altering the process that we present. So instead of having the spreadsheet that's a bit difficult to read, Carrie and I are developing a PowerPoint that hits the high points for
Great.
each of the
Okay,
departments. And then specific questions, we can pull up SoftWrite and address specifics that way.
Okay.
So it should move a little
Perfect.
quicker.
I mean, I do 3, but is that too early for you guys?
I can.
If it's 4, it's 3, at that point, it's irrelevant
It
to me,
is.
so whatever you want.
I mean, 3 would get you out of here, get us out of here earlier.
Listen, I'm committed to what we have to do,
Okay.
so if we're here till 10 or
Whatever.
5,
Doesn't
whatever.
matter.
Okay,
I mean,
Mitch, your
I
choice,
mean,
3 or
I don't
4,
care.
it's up to you.
I would say 3 for the
3.
department heads. They'd
And that
probably
way
appreciate
department
3.
heads are work, yeah, I feel, okay.
No, you close early.
You want 3?
It's
Well, yeah,
Friday.
it's Friday, so they're
They
here,
close.
I
Yeah.
know, yeah.
So 3
is
would
okay?
3 would work.
I mean,
We'll
3
share
as
that with the
oppo-
department
actually
heads.
might be better than 7 PM on
Right.
another
Yeah.
night,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's probably going to end up being easier for the departments that
Okay.
will end up needing to share.
So let's try to do 3 to 5, if that, does that make
Okay.
sense?
Nice.
Fine.
Okay,
Okay, thank
Man.
you.
I like that.
and I might have my kids here, they'll be fine.
They like politics.
So that's the first one.
My husband's away, like,
The other
this whole
items,
month, So it's like, it is what it is.
the other items, just no specific order, but items that are on the radar for 2019.
Okay,
The DPW barn,
okay,
the marine fueling facility,
okay.
So what? Say that again?
the marine fueling facility.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that we have to get on, just on the calendar, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
There are several. I'll just dump the list out,
Oh,
and then
okay,
we
and then
can
we'll
kind of
discuss.
sift through.
Okay, great.
So the old firehouse trust and the decision on future for that facility.
Okay.
The building study committee will have an update available for the board sometime in February.
Okay.
It should be good to get them to come in. They had a very productive couple of meetings with some initial reviews and the department
Great.
heads.
Okay,
The board can, offline, we'll reach out to sort out executive sessions for Long Beach.
yep,
Policy review workshops, I've been working on some markups for those, and it may be helpful to either do a workshop and kind of barrel through several of them, or we can cluster them at each of the meetings. The board also has Building Study Long Beach, the town administrator search as well.
right, okay.
And then also, I would just add to that, the insurance task force.
Yes, thank you, the
Yep.
task force reports.
I have to check with the rest of the group, but I think we have our recommendations ready.
Great.
Great, okay.
So I
Okay,
guess-
so a couple of those I thought, we just say
Parallel.
them, yeah, and a couple I think could go on regular meeting. Wanna just-
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
We just run
Sure.
through them again?
Sure, the DPW barn,
Yep, so DPW barn, I think we should let FinCom get up and running a tiny bit, because
Okay.
I think that has to be a joint meeting. Does that
so would
make
we,
sense?
so for that one, if we could give a general timeframe, would we think June is probably good for that, May or June? Is that enough time, or are we looking a little farther out?
Yeah, no, I think May or June is probably fine, don't you?
Okay.
Great. Love it.
But I don't want to burden, I know they have
Right,
town
they've
meeting.
gotta get through
and then-
budget.
DPW
Yeah.
barn, okay.
So when do you want to, what do we decide?
So
with the
May or
barn?
June for barn, DPW barn, because I think FinCom has to be up and operating after town meeting. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, next.
Marine fueling facility?
Okay, that I'd love to do, February or March, but let's keep going through this. Let's
Sure.
put February or March
Yep.
on for now.
The old firehouse trust,
Could that go in a regular meeting?
that could go on a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be part of the building study committee report out?
So, it can, but
There are some issues
I
we
think,
have to decide.
just like the
Okay.
DPW facility, that before the committee puts a lot of effort into a facility
I
like
see.
that, the board needs to make a decision on whether
Yeah.
it wants to keep it or
Okay,
not.
got it.
Why don't you put
Or
that
sell
on one
it.
of our February meetings?
I didn't say that, did I?
Yes, you did.
Yes, you
Yeah.
did.
So,
And everybody
Friends
in
everywhere.
Rockport heard you.
So if we can put, so perhaps if we put that one with the building study committee update on the 26th, does that work?
February?
February.
That seems good to me. Does that make sense?
February what, 26th?
26.
Yep, so we'll do the,
Does that sound good to you, Monica?
That sounds good to me, and with respect to the DPW barn, our discussions are tying into that as well, so I would advocate for doing the discussion with FinCom as soon as you feel comfortable
Okay.
regarding the barn.
Okay, so maybe by the 26th, we can figure out if we can do the discussion with FinCom sooner. Maybe we'll have a good sense then if we can move that up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, right?
okay, so that checks
It'd be
that
great to
box.
move it up. I don't want them to go running as soon as they got on board.
Right, but it's a very important
It
matter.
is.
And
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
that the sooner everybody can get on the same page or have a better understanding of
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
considerations, the better.
Yeah.
Really.
So,
I mean, maybe we could move that up to like, end of March, April, but let's feel,
Yeah,
let's give them a
I'll
little
put a
time
note,
and see.
I'll put a note for
Right?
April
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
to revisit.
Okay.
So, just speaking of large outlays of money, may I ask Mitch, what's the status of the water treatment plant situation?
The director and I are reviewing the specifics on that, but at the last meeting, the board approved
last week?
an engineering contract
Okay.
to start to get some design work
Okay.
done.
Good, thank you.
Okay, keep going down your list, Mitch.
Yes, so the marine fueling facility?
Oh, okay, so February.
So
Okay.
February right now has Dogtown on the 5th and Building Study and Firehouse Trust on the 26th. There are 2 March meetings, 12th and the 26th. Do we want to
Oh, what
add
about
that
the
to the
12th?
12th?
What about the 12th of March? Because I know that I know Harbor Advisory is very antsy, and then I know that
Yeah, that's
Granite
true.
Pier people,
Antsy too.
I know that we need to like quickly all get on at the same table. I think
That is a
March 12th
priority.
is perfect for
Perfect.
that.
I would give
I
enough
agree.
notice for them.
Yeah, that will
would be
give
good.
plenty of
good.
notice to all involved. And for that, Harbor Advisory, Granite Pier
Granite Pier, yeah.
Committee, Harbor Masters.
Yes.
Everybody.
Was there anyone else? I
And
think
at that,
DPW commissioners, I think, should probably
Sure,
be
we can do that,
invited
yep.
to that as well.
Is that a meeting that you, because I look at what happened when we talked about the extension and having, like, at the last minute to move. I called Rob, actually, to see if the high school was available when we talked about that, because it moved from the police station down there. Is that something that we anticipate there's gonna be a lot of people, that we might wanna have a larger venue?
Let's consider that before that. Let's just think, let's.
So I'll
think
make a
about
note
it
for
before
that.
we do
because
that.
Just
way
make
we-
note of,
Yep.
location.
Because if you
Even
have
maybe
this place
Thatcher
packed,
Island
that's
Committee or
fine, but
someone.
it's just,
we can look at the
Trial
community
and
house or something
Yeah.
for that night, just to be
Something-
safe
Thatcher
for that.
if we
Invite Thatcher Island
anticipate
Committee.
that.
That one?
Great.
Yep.
Jalen Lou.
Yep.
Yeah,
Anybody that gets wet in their job description should be there.
yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. So policy reviews, I would
Wait, so
suggest
that would be what night? March?
Oh, that would be
And
March
is that a regular
12th.
meeting?
That's a regular meeting.
Okay, so it's a regular meeting.
So the off weeks is the 19th. That's the off week in March. There's also there's the 5th and the 19th as the off weeks. Did you want to do it that night since it's going to have these other parties linked to it?
If you're gonna invite that many people, I think you have
I
to
think-
have committees.
I think we might.
I think so too, yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. I was looking. Oh shoot. Hold on. I was in February. Hold on a second. Sorry, my iPad's not working. That's how I am on my laptop.
What date are we talking about again? Tell me.
March.
Okay.
March
So
12th.
can we, do you mind just starting with, so this week we had a regular meeting.
Yes.
Next week we have a regular meeting.
Correct. 22nd is a regular meeting.
Yep. The
February's
next week,
meeting-
I'm out of town, just as an FYI.
February, we have the 5th and 26th.
February 5th, we have a regular meeting with, say it again,
It's the 5th, and the topic that
Dogtown.
night is Dogtown.
okay?
The 26th is a regular meeting, with the topic being Old Firehouse Trust and Building Study Committee.
Okay, what about February 12th, anything, or no?
February 12th,
We're off.
that is, that's an off week.
Okay, great, okay. And then the 19th, we're off. That's
The
school
19th
vacation
is school
week.
vacation
Yeah,
week.
I'm away that week too. Okay. Okay, so then the 26th,
26th is the regular.
okay.
Firehouse Trust, Building
Firehouse
Study.
Trust, Building Study. Okay, sorry, I entered the wrong month.
You're gonna send this all out, Mitch, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, once it's finalized, we'll
Yeah,
do it.
I'm not even gonna.
We're
bother.
we're actually going to share with you a unified calendar
Woohoo!
Oh, nice.
through Google.
Okay.
That way you can
Google
link it
Docs.
however you'd like
The
to.
5th is a week off, which is,
Right.
March 5th is a week off.
And
okay.
the 12th was the marine fueling.
Well, 12th is a regular session, but
Yeah.
if all these parties are coming to this meeting, do you want to have it?
So, I wonder if maybe
separate?
we could do 6 to 7 regular meeting.
Sure.
And then,
Yep.
7 o'clock, turn into like workshop with marine fueling.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? BOS.
Yep.
Meeting, then marine fueling.
Okay.
And I was really clear because I've already gotten calls from people that this is not just a Granite Pier discussion. This is just a kind of viability of a marine fueling station in town, like first draft workshop.
Yep.
Okay.
Where everyone can
Voice
obviously
an
comment.
opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I would ask if we can, and I'm sure all avenues, but maybe there's some we can think of, is this is one of those things that's gonna come along that people are gonna say, we didn't hold public hearings, we didn't do this, and we didn't do that. This needs to be as public and as out there and in your face as it possibly can. So
Yeah.
whatever we can do to facilitate that, I
Yeah,
think would be great.
and this came out of our meeting with Harbor Advisory, so like the
Right,
whole
right.
thing has been
Right.
public so
It's
far.
working.
But you know what?
Exactly.
You know what will happen? We'll hold public hearings, we'll hold all kinds of talk sessions and so forth, and people who don't like it will complain about it. So, I mean, but as long as we go through the process that we always have, and it'll be
Yeah.
fine.
But we're gonna show them how
Okay,
the
so we'll
sausage
do
is
that
made.
March 12th. I think we can do that. Yeah.
Certainly.
Okay. And then do we have a meeting the night, March
Legislation.
19th?
19th is an off week,
Okay,
and the 26th is a regular meeting.
okay. Okay,
And then April 2nd is off. April
and we're
9th is.
still working on town meeting.
Yes, we're sorting through that. There's some,
Got it, yeah.
another complicating thing
Yep.
popped up this afternoon.
I saw, okay. You're gonna just.
We're
figure
gonna
it
take,
out.
just take
You're
care of
gonna
that, and
magically figure it all
we're
out.
gonna figure it out tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
Talking about making the sausage
Tomorrow's
over
a
here, we're
new
gonna figure it
day.
out tomorrow.
Bam, there you
Great,
go.
okay. All right, so we can probably stop there, right? Okay.
I would suggest.
I
like that we're because things talking about change, April. you know.
No, totally, I know. Quick question?
Is there going to be a workshop at some point on the sewer capacity issue?
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yeah, we
as
talked
an
about
FYI,
that, about doing that.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
you left,
That should be a joint.
there was quite a bit of discussion about that. The DPW is working on updating the information from the Kleinfelder report.
Yeah.
Doing the
Okay.
work themselves in-house. And they've made some good progress already. Good.
Great.
It'd be nice to get that on an agenda.
I agree, I agree.
Can you follow up with them on that?
We'll verify
Yeah.
when they'll be ready.
Okay, great,
Excellent.
great. But thanks for the reminder on that one, yeah.
So could we possibly slot the insurance task force report out?
On the 26th, you wanna do March 26th?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
March 26th.
Yep.
Okay.
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 Good.
Great. That must make me feel better, Mitch.
Some of the big items have a date attached to them, so that's great.
Great.
That's great.
Great.
We're on schedule for everything. There's nothing that's,
No, everything seems good.
everything is where it
We're,
needs to be.
we're doing good, everything
Once
needed.
town meeting.
Yes, once we nail down
Yeah.
town meeting, we'll be good to go.
Okay, great.
More importantly, how's the baby schedule?
It's going very well, thank you.
Yeah.
She sleeps better than I do, so. we're
Really?
doing good,
Wow.
yes.
Yeah.
Goodness. Now, I'm gonna knock on wood.
Yeah,
for
I
you.
said
Yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah. Remember those days? Oh, my God.
It never go, like,
No.
kids never, it just evolves into like opening your eyes and they're like, can I have a drink of water? And you're like, wait, you're supposed to sleep.
You're right.
Wait till they're 19, 18, and 17.
You're waiting for him to come
Right?
home.
Right,
You're
Dawn?
waiting
I don't allow my kids to get that old.
Okay, any other business?
Nope.
Mitch, anything
Oh,
else?
I have one thing. I don't think I have any, do I have any things to read for the,
Oh,
do I have one?
oops, I forgot.
No.
Did anyone have anything to report or
I
can
don't
we do it
have,
next week?
is it in the folder? Okay. All right, let's do that. But before I do that, and as I look for what I'm looking for, right here, there we go. This Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. in the community room at the Rockport Police Station will be the next installment of Conversation with Campbell.
Right.
And I would love for anybody to come down and express their opinions, thoughts, ideas to make Rockport even more awesome than it already is.
Great,
All right?
perfect.
With that, Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 29 totaling $536,971.95 excuse me, an expense warrant 29 totaling $1,558,122.81 on January 15th, 2019. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Any further comments?
Nope.
Mitch, anything else?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks. All those in favor of adjournment?
I'll make a
Motion to
Motion.
adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. All those in favor, second. All those
Aye.
in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great.